Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, today we're going to continue our discussion on cubes. We have two basic things we're going to cover today. The first we are going to cover is how to create a cube, just the basic cube based on your template VMs to do some basic work or to just have a different work profile, or in this case, we'll do a different profile for Switch to Linux inside the system. The second is we're going to show you how you can create a VM based on just a standalone VM to run any ISO. And here we have Peppermint installed. And I'm going to show you how to get that installed. I'm going to show you how to add the network to it, because that's the one thing a lot of people seem to have a lot of questions about. We're going to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and head right on over to the VM for the rest of the video. On the desktop, the first thing we're going to do is head on over to our Qube manager. We're going to take care of the easy one first. Now, I changed my personal cube color to black. The other thing that I did is I came into the vault and I added an ISO image that we're going to use in the second half of this tutorial. But for now, we're going to head on over and hit the new cube button. With the new cube button, we're going to go ahead and enter the name of the cube that we want. I'm going to create this cube as something I can use for my Switch to Linux account. So it's going to have all my social media is going to be logged in. We're going to be logged into YouTube. We're not actually going to be doing anything like doing video production, but I'll use this to check up on affiliates. I'll use it for maybe responding to email, maybe doing a little bit of website management and updating. So I don't need anything video editor relating, but I might need anything else that might be relevant to just basic administration and management. Now, by default, most of the things will be set to the defaults that you set, but we're going to go ahead and walk through them anyway. So the app VM is the type. We have 4 different types. A disposable will be completely destroyed every time you close it down. Standalone is going to be a completely separate thing. We're going to use that next time. The template VM is going to be what your basic templates are based on, and the app VM is what you use for your basic standard VMs. So we're going to stick with app VM, and then here you can choose either the Debian or the Fedora. You do have the Unix options as well, but I wouldn't recommend those. You also have a no option. Again, we're going to use this a little bit later. By default, just decide if you want your basic applications to be based on Debian or based on Fedora. I personally like Debian better, but that's a personal choice. Then your networking. You can do none if you want no access to the internet on this particular device. That is actually what you see under the vault down here. You can see it's NA under the net VM because there is no network access to anything on the vault. If you do sys USB, you will have access to USBs but not network. Network will give you access to network but not USBs. The sys firewall, which is our default, gives you basic ClearNet internet USB ports, and sys Unix gives you anonymous internet. So that is tied in through the Tor network. So I'm going to go ahead and use the sys firewall for our basic configuration, non-anonymous browsing. If you toggle this button, as soon as you hit the create button, it's going to launch the settings. So we're going to go ahead and do that because there's going to be some settings we might want to change. You can provide network access to other cubes, basically allow other cubes to network with each other. The storage pool, this is a new feature inside Qubes 4. This is considered an advanced option, so I would not change this out of VM pool unless you know exactly what you're doing. It has to do with where you can put and store the cube's information. And then our initial RAM, there's no drop downs here. It's just a default, or you just set it. The defaults are going to be 400 for your initial and 4 gig for your total. So we're going to go ahead and keep that as default. Push OK, and then once it creates your new cube, you can see here, then it launches up our settings. So if there's any other options that we might want to do, we can do that. So here is your storage information out here. I have 2 gigabytes of private storage that I can use, and then it has system storage of 10 gigs for basic system files, things like that. You can, of course, toggle the template and the network over here and hit your advanced if you want to change your basic memory, which we're going to be doing this in the second half of the tutorial, and we'll explain why that is when we get there. And then there's other options down here. Generally, you're going to want to leave those unchecked for the purpose of a basic cube. I have not figured out full screening at this point in time. That's something I'm still looking into, and I can't seem to get anything with full screening working, which is going to be significant on our next part. And then our mode, use PVH if you have to. If you're doing your standalone VMs with ISOs, we're going to use HVM, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the next option. So we're just going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave everything else alone. It's all working. The other thing that I might do is, I don't need that. We'll go ahead and keep Thunderbird for checking email. I might use the terminal for something. Here's Firefox. I will probably need KeePassXC to keep track of things. I might use some LibreOffice, but I don't know which one I might use. I may or may not. I'm just going to throw the base startup on the system. And I don't really think I'm going to need anything else in this particular settings. And then just leave this alone as well. You see there's a pull down for services, but everything will be set up good by default. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and start the system, or we can just come over here and just start any given application that you want. So in this case, we'll go ahead and start up Firefox, make sure that it's working. You get the notification that it's starting. Now it has started. Now give it just another few seconds here, and Firefox should boot up. Here you go. Now, I did experiment with changing the template VM to configure Firefox how I wanted it, and it does not work. Everything basically is still default. I'm wondering if a profile might do it, but I haven't tested profiles yet. But I can go in here and I could, customize the whole thing and, just quite easily add the type of stuff I'd want to add, take out the type of things I'd want to take out, just all that basic stuff. So that's about how I typically do that. I might change the search configurations and go through the settings and harden it down. That's probably something I'm going to want to do. All right, let's go ahead and shut this guy down for the second half of the tutorial. So yes, we're going to shut that guy down. The other thing I'm going to show you is we're going to go ahead into the vault. I'm going to open the files. I'm going to show you that under the documents and files, I uploaded the Peppermint ISO file. So with the Peppermint ISO file, I can create a VM to run something like Peppermint. All right, so if I go ahead and push the start option, you'll see that Peppermint is running, and we're going to walk through a few things. Now, the first problem is I've not figured out how to get full screen going. You have an option here for full screen. It's a toggle button you can set, but it doesn't actually do anything. I don't know why. If you know the solution to that, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and keep researching it. But in the meantime, here's what I did is I just used a screen resolution that gets me pretty close to the whole thing. I have a fully functioning Peppermint running inside of here. Now, is this super secure Peppermint? Not really. It's not going to be any more secure than Peppermint running on anything else. It's just if there happens to be some security breach in here, it is isolated from the whole rest of the system. So that's actually a pretty good thing. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that you need to do in order to create a ISO bootable system. So we're going to go ahead and hit our new cube. And I'm going to name this one delete so I can easily delete it later because I don't want it to be around forever. Let's just go ahead and call it a blue one. Now the options that we're going to change. The first is we're going to use a standalone VM fully persistent. So standalone VM fully persistent is going to assign disk drive space to it within your system, but it's not going to clear itself out, and it's not based on the individual templates. Under template, we're going to check none, and we're going to hit networking default system firewall. But I'm going to warn you, when you first launch the system, it's not going to work. Okay. And we are not going to check this because it's going to require us to add a USB or an ISO image because we have not selected a template. So we can come over here and just leave everything else the way it is. But the problem is it's not going to work right. And I'm going to demonstrate that here. So we're going to go into our vault. we're going to grab from our document here the ISO image for Peppermint, and it's going to create the new cube and then immediately start it up since we have it booting from an ISO. And what it's going to happen here is it's going to get to the point where it's just going to die. So we're going to get here. It's going to detect that there's not enough disk space, there's not enough RAM running, and the whole thing's just going to crash and burn and kill itself. Failed write error, and there it goes. So it just killed itself. Now, what would I need to do to fix this and make it work? Well, the first thing we need to do, we need to come over here and we need to find this disk storage. What I did is I put my private storage to 10 and my system storage to 10. I'm not sure exactly which one. I think my system storage needs to be at least at 2. And this might be okay, but I went ahead and bumped this to 10 as well. So that's the first setting that we're going to change. The second setting we're going to change is the initial memory is way too low. So I'm going to set this up to, I'm going to fix number lock first. I'm going to set this to 1500 and keep this at 4000. What happens is, even though Peppermint has a minimum RAM of 1000, if you set it at 1000, it's going to take a little bit in the backdraw, and your system's going to be running with a reported 933 megabytes, and it will not allow you to install Peppermint on it. So I just bumped this up to 1500 on the initial, and then as it needs more memory, as more systems are running, then it will ramp itself up to 4 gigs of RAM, but it won't go over that. You can see it defaulted to VHM and it defaulted to current. Leave those guys alone, and next time we want to boot it up, we just need to come over here, grab the same thing, and this, and hit OK. And when we hit OK, it's going to go ahead and boot itself up. Okay, I'm not going to boot it up right now. What we're going to show you instead is how to delete a cube. Go ahead and push the delete button, and then you have to type in exactly as the name appears. Push OK, and it will delete. Now, there's one more thing that we need to do. And to do this, I'm going to start Peppermint back up, and this is to fix the networking. By default, the networking is not going to work. And so what we need to do is we need to get our networking running. So let's go ahead, and with the machine running, we're going to boot up our settings. And then we need this netcube information over here. So I'm going to go ahead and just slide this guy right over to the side. And then this guy is going to need logged in. Let this do its thing. And once we land here, you're going to need to go into your advanced networking. Now in Peppermint, it's advanced network configuration. That's what XFCE has. You might just need to right click, depending on what the ISO is you're running here. You just need to find the network connections options, which is here, double click, or I believe you can just click the gear, pull up this information here. What you need to fix is the IPv4 settings. The default is automatic DHCP, but since we are using a manager system on the computer that's routing networking different ways, we need to change this to manual, and then we need to add some information. So over here, you need the IP address for the machine, which is 10.137.0.18. So that is what we have under the address. If we hit add new, you can see new line, new line, new line. Okay, so the second one is the net mask. 255, 255, 255, 255. That's exactly what I entered here. It changes down to 32 for whatever reason. Maybe that's the answer to whatever the, all things in the universe. We have to set our gateway 10.138.20.180. So go ahead and set that over there. And then our virtual DNS servers are 10.139.1.1 and 10.39.1.2. So I set those under your two DNS servers separated by a comma. Hit the save button, and then once you do that, you're going to come down here. You're going to disconnect from your network, and then you're going to reconnect to the network. And once you reconnect, now you will have functioning internet. So let's go ahead and boot up Firefox again right here just to show you that we have functioning internet, because this is the one thing a lot of people are going to get messed up on, is that your networking is not going to properly work. It looks like there aren't many great matches for that search term. Of course, I just randomly pick stuff, Google. So anyway, there is how we get the ISO image working, and that will wrap up this part. So we'll go ahead and head on over to the camera there for the final wrap up. So there you have it. That's how easy it is to create Qubes once you have it up and running. A little bit complicated to get here, but it does do a really good job of separating and isolating out your system in the meantime. With that, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a look at the links in the description down below if you want to help support the channel. We do have merch. We do have a website that we are in the process of upgrading and updating information on. Some of the information is a little old. Actually, no, some of the information is like a lifetime in terms of computer science. We are getting that fixed. But with that, thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.